All right, so we are talking about hypothetical syllogisms today, which I think yet again will be hopefully another entry into our confusing word, easy concept Hall of Fame. So let's talk about hypothetical syllogisms. Again, if I put it in underlined in bold, you should write that down. If it's not underlined in bold, don't worry about writing it down. You can if you want. So there's only 4 of these that we're really going to worry about in this class, okay? 2 of them are valid, 2 of them are invalid. And they're pretty easy to recognize. So let's jump right in. So what is the form of a hypothetical or conditional statement? What is every hypothetical, like in theory, what's the form of it? Yeah, if blank, then blank. Okay, well done. So if blank, then blank. So if, for example, if you eat ice cream, you will get a brain freeze, to which I say that's a price worth paying. But that's what we call a hypothetical statement, right? If blank, then blank. So here's your official definition. I'll put 2 things up here. A hypothetical is a statement that affirms an outcome based on a condition. So here's the outcome. You will get a brain freeze, but not just randomly. You don't just randomly get a brain freeze. You get a brain freeze based on the condition that you eat ice cream. And so in this course and in the study of logic, hypotheticals are almost always going to be put into the form of if P, then Q. Okay, P and Q. And then occasionally they'll throw in an R in there, as we'll see in just a moment. But if P, then Q. This is a hypothetical statement. So if you recall, when we first met hypotheticals long weeks ago, we said translate hypotheticals as universals. So if I gave you, if you eat ice cream, you'll get a brain freeze, you would say all eaters of ice cream are people who get brain freezes. But what we're going to meet today is something called a hypothetical syllogism. And in hypothetical syllogisms, we have different rules from categorical syllogisms. And so we're not going to translate that into categorical form. We're going to leave it as if P, then Q. So a pure hypothetical syllogism, so technically there's 5. There's 5 of these we'll meet today. A pure hypothetical syllogism is a syllogism that uses only hypothetical statements. Now you'll notice it's a syllogism, so we still have 3 statements, but it's not a categorical syllogism because these aren't in categorical form. We're leaving these as hypothetical statements. And so this would be the textbook example of a hypothetical syllogism. If P, then Q. If Q, then R. Therefore, if P, then R, right? So if it rains, then I will get wet. If I get wet, then I will be angry. Therefore, if it rains, then I will be angry, right? So this is a hypothetical syllogism. If P, then Q. If Q, then R. If P, then R. Okay, yes?
Is there a specific reason that we're not using S after P?
Well, because we're not talking about like a subject and predicate. We're talking about conditions and antecedents, as we'll talk about in just a moment. So because this is going to not just be one word. This is usually going to be several words together. All right, so in a hypothetical, I'm going to make your life a little bit easier, introduce you to the little horseshoe here. In a hypothetical, you can use this reverse horseshoe, or whatever you want to call it, to represent if-then. So instead of writing out if P, then Q, you can just write this. P, horseshoe, Q. Q, horseshoe, R, therefore P, horseshoe, R. And really, you could even, instead of writing therefore, you could write the little 3-dot thing. And so really, we're cutting out words right and left at the end of the year. So that little horseshoe thing, it's not wrong if you write if P, then Q, but if you just write P, horseshoe, Q, it's the same thing. Okay, so no problem there. Excuse me?
Are we doing schemas or are we doing actual?
This is different. So this is not a completely different world, but again, if we're doing a genus and species chart and we're learning about syllogisms, there's categorical syllogisms that we've been learning about for the last couple of months, about like an AAE2 syllogism, and then there's hypothetical. So these are 2 different things, right? These are both syllogisms, but these are 2 different things, and so it's not just a one-to-one same rule. So we'll see what these look like in the wild in just a moment. Yes, Ben?
So on the quiz on Thursday, if there was an example that said if you eat ice cream, then you'll get a brain freeze, or can we actually just put like dot, like if that was the conclusion, just 3 dots, then if you eat ice cream, horseshoe, or like
let's you don't even know what you're asking yet. So let's get the lesson and then we'll answer questions about the quiz. Yes.
Are we replacing, I take it, the Q and the R's with actual words?
Yes, in just a moment we will. We're showing you the standard form and then we'll get specific in just a moment. So here's another hypothetical. If I eat my vegetables, not my syllogisms, if I eat my vegetables, I will grow. If I grow, then I will be a giant. Therefore, if I eat my vegetables, I will be a giant. So I should tell my kids that because they don't like vegetables. So each hypothetical statement up there has two statements. So what are the two statements that we can extract from if I eat my vegetables, I will grow? Then I will grow. Eden?
I will grow.
Well, that's one. I will grow. What's the first one?
Eat my vegetables.
I eat my vegetables, okay? So remember, statements have subject and predicates. So I eat my vegetables / I will grow. I grow / I will be a giant. I eat my vegetables / I will be a giant. So the first statement in each hypothetical statement, the condition, okay, the part following the if is called the antecedent. So I eat my vegetables is the antecedent. I grow is the antecedent. I eat my vegetables is the antecedent. So when you see an if P then Q or if Q then R, the thing that comes right after the if, the first statement, is what we call the antecedent. Okay? It's very important that you remember that. The antecedent is this first statement immediately following the if. That is what we call the antecedent. So in every conditional, every hypothetical, you'll have an antecedent, and it's the first statement that comes right after the if. So if I eat my vegetables, I eat my vegetables is the antecedent. Okay? The second statement, let me get this out of the way so you can see. The second statement, the result of the condition, the part following the then, is called the consequent. So in every hypothetical syllogism, we have two pieces. We have the condition or the antecedent, and we have the result of the condition called the consequent. So I eat my vegetables, that is my antecedent. I will grow, that is my consequent. I grow, that's my antecedent. I will be a giant, that's my consequent. I eat my vegetables, I will be a giant, that's my consequent. Now you'll notice, I will grow is both a consequent and an antecedent in this syllogism. I eat my vegetables, so the point is, this only works on line by line. Because I eat my vegetables is the antecedent in this syllogism doesn't mean it always has to be. It could be the consequent in another one. But what comes first after the if is the antecedent. What comes second after the then is called the consequent. Any questions about that? Two pieces, fairly simple. Let's go on. I've already done that. I don't know why I have a separate screen here, but we've already seen that. All right, so hypothetical syllogisms, here's what they have in common with categorical syllogisms. They can also be invalid. So here is an invalid hypothetical syllogism. If you are a human, you have a nose. If you are an elephant, you have a nose. Therefore, if you are a human, then you are an elephant. Okay? Now we're going to learn today why that is invalid. Obviously, we know that it's unsound, but why is it invalid? We will learn in just a moment. So hypothetical syllogisms can also be invalid. You could also note it has two true premises and a false conclusion. Remember that. Okay, don't ever outgrow that. Remember, validity means that if it has true premises, the conclusion must be true. And when I look up there, are the two premises true?
Yes.
Yeah, and what is the conclusion?
False.
Absolutely. I hope that we all know that we are humans and not elephants. So that's two true premises and a false conclusion. So we know that must be invalid because every invalid syllogism, two true premises and a false conclusion. So some syllogisms, though, this is what we'll spend the rest of our time on, are a combination of hypothetical and categorical statements. They are called mixed hypothetical syllogisms. Shouldn't be very hard to remember. Pure hypothetical syllogisms are three if-thens. Mixed hypothetical syllogisms have both hypothetical and categorical statements. Okay, so pure, three if P then Q's. Mixed, a combination of the two. Okay, a combination of hypothetical statements and other statements. So here is what it looks like. If P then Q, P, therefore Q. You notice we've only got one hypothetical, if P then Q. The other two are just normal statements. So let's put some words up there. If I eat the brownie, I will be full. So what is the antecedent of that statement?
I eat brownie.
I eat the brownie. The antecedent current is the statement following the if.
Oh.
Okay, it's the first statement. So I eat the brownie is the antecedent. McKeever, what's the consequent?
I will be full.
I will be full. Exactly. Okay, if P then Q, if I eat the brownie, I will be full. I eat that brownie. Therefore, what?
I will be full.
I will be full. Okay? Right? So that is a mixed hypothetical syllogism. We both have hypothetical statements and just standard statements. If I eat the brownie, I'll be full. I eat the brownie, therefore I will be full. So we're going to learn about the two valid forms of mixed hypotheticals. There's only two, and they always have the same form. So this should be fairly straightforward. Here are your... All right, so I do want you to even write down this right here. Just have this in your notes and this bottom part as well. So if P then Q, P, therefore Q. That's the exact same thing I just put up there. If I eat that brownie, I will be full. I eat that brownie, therefore I will be full. The form of that, if I told you to put that in sort of symbolic form, you would say if P then Q, P, therefore Q. And this form of hypothetical syllogism is called modus ponens. Modus ponens. And here's the good news. Modus ponens is always valid. It's always valid. If you see modus ponens, it's a valid syllogism, period. Full stop. Like any two statements, right? If it rains, I will get wet. It rains, therefore I got wet, right? That's always valid. That's always a valid form of argument, okay? So that's called modus ponens. If P, then Q, P, therefore Q. There is another form of always valid mixed hypothetical syllogism, and it is called modus tollens. So if P, then Q, not Q, therefore not P. If I eat the brownie, I will be full. I am not full, therefore I did not eat that brownie. Follow the logic there? If I eat that brownie, I'm going to be full. But I'm not full, therefore I did not eat that brownie. If P, then Q, not Q, therefore not P. This form of hypothetical syllogism is called modus tollens, and modus tollens is always valid. If you get a syllogism and you put it into symbolic form and you see your old buddy modus tollens, you can know that is a valid syllogism. A valid syllogism. Now, does that mean it's true? No, it means it's valid. Remember, truth and validity are two different things. Any questions about modus ponens, modus tollens? Ben?
So, like, the antecedent and the consequent don't necessarily, like, the antecedent doesn't have to be the second one. It can be, like, the second or third statement in the syllogism.
The antecedent is the first part of a hypothetical syllogism.
Yes, but, like, I'm saying, like, in the hypothetical, it says P, if P, then Q. And then the P part is bottom, is conclusion. So it can be a premise or a conclusion, either one.
Well,
You have to.
these are the only two valid forms. If P, then Q, P, therefore Q. So in this one, P is in our second statement, okay? And then modus tollens. If P, then Q, not Q, therefore not P. And that's in the conclusion. So those are the only two places that it can go and still be valid. Because we're going to look at next are the two invalid forms of mixed hypothetical syllogisms. And they are as follows. There's two fallacies, and they look very similar. So details matter. But these syllogisms are invalid, right? So if P, then Q, Q, therefore P. And your first instinct might be to think, that looks okay. Like, what's wrong with that? Well, look at this. If I eat that brownie, I will be full. I am full, therefore I ate that brownie. What's wrong with that? Thomas.
There's like other ways to be full. Like,
Say that again, Thomas. People in video can hear you.
there's like other ways to be full.
There are other ways to be full. If I eat that brownie, I will be full. I am full, therefore I ate that brownie. Maybe I ate ice cream. Maybe I ate cookies. Maybe I ate pizza. Maybe I ate a salad. Probably not. But like, there are other things that you can eat to make you full. Therefore, this is invalid. Okay? If I eat that brownie, I will be full. I am full. Therefore, I ate that brownie. This is what's called a non-sequitur. Non-sequitur means it does not follow. Okay? Non-sequitur means it does not follow. As Thomas pointed out, just because you're full doesn't mean you ate the brownie. There's lots of ways to get full besides eating a brownie, like Vandernoot putting his head up off the desk. This fallacy, as we will call the evil twin of modus ponens, because you notice how close it looks to modus ponens, is called affirming the consequent. Affirming the consequent. It's called that because you are affirming the consequent Q and making a non sequitur conclusion. If P then Q, Q is my consequent. If I say if P then Q, Q, therefore P, I am affirming the consequent, but that does not follow. It does not follow. Remember, validity means, George, that if the premises are true, the conclusion has to be true. And Thomas, off the top of his head, already came up with one situation where the conclusion of that syllogism is false. It could be true that if I eat that brownie, I will be full. It could be true that I'm full, but it could be false that I ate that brownie. Therefore, that syllogism is invalid. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so we got modus ponens, modus tollens. We have the non sequitur affirming the consequent. And now here is our last one. If P, then Q, not P, therefore not Q. Again, it might look okay on first glance, but take a deeper look. If I eat that brownie, I will be full. I did not eat that brownie, therefore I am not full. Thomas, it's the same problem as the last one, right? There are other ways to get full besides eating a brownie. The question is not, does that just so happen to be true? The question is, if it were true that if I eat that brownie, I will be full, and if it were true that I did not eat that brownie, does it have to be true that I am not full?
No, because
Nope.
what about pizza?
Yeah, what about pizza? I mean, please, for the love of all that's pure and holy, what about pizza? So this is called denying the antecedent, okay? The antecedent, remember, is the P. If P, then Q, not P, therefore not Q. It's called denying the antecedent because you are denying the antecedent and drawing a faulty conclusion. So that's it. Those are the only two. Those are the only two. There are two of mixed hypothetical syllogisms. You've got two valid, modus ponens, modus tollens, and you've got two invalid, right? We've got the good old non sequitur, and then we have denying the antecedent. That's it. Those are the only two. So your homework for tonight, I think, will be fairly straightforward. We're going to do the first three together, and then I'll either take questions about your test, or you guys can work on this, your call.
Can we eat our snack order?
After I go over this, that's fine.
So,
All right. All right, so the instructions of this particular assignment say the following. Analyze each of the following arguments and write down its form in the blank provided. Pure hypothetical, modus ponens, modus tollens, affirming the consequent, or denying the antecedent. There's only 5 options here. And do me a favor, in your book, open up to page 231. Open up to page 231. This would be a great thing for you to have open in front of you tonight as you're doing this homework. George, page 231 in your book. This would be a great thing for you to have open in front of you while you're doing your homework. You know, on page 231, they have the argument diagrams for all 4 of these mixed hypothetical syllogisms. So you can just look and see which one it is, okay? So keep page 231 open in front of you while we do number 1 together. It says, if you are lazy, then you will be poor. Henry is poor. It follows, therefore, he is lazy. Which one is that? Curran?
That is notice.
Well, let's put it in this form. If you are lazy, then you will be poor. Okay, so we're just going to say P and Q, right? So that is if P, then Q. Okay, and then it says Henry is poor, so Q, therefore P. Which one does that look like?
Notice ponens.
Look again. Luke,
Is it the affirming the consequence?
That is affirming the consequent. If P, then Q, Q, therefore P.
Oh.
Yes, that is affirming the consequent. So what I would recommend, but not require, because all I'm checking is that you do a quick sketch of each one of those arguments. So sketch out the argument in just, like, you don't have to rewrite all the words, but just use P and Q and see which one is this. Like, they're not tricky. Let's do the second one together. It says, the Bible teaches that if a man is generous, then he will prosper. Okay, so let's say again, the Bible teaches if P, then Q. And then it says, we know that Mike is not generous. So that is not P, right? He is not generous. Therefore, not Q. Jesse?
Notice commas.
Take a look again at that chart on page 231. Which one is that? If P, then Q, not P, not Q. Sadler?
Denying the antecedent.
That is denying the antecedent. Okay? You see that, Jesse? Okay. We'll do one more together. It says, if you speak too much, sin will not be absent. So, if P, then Q. If sin is absent, then it is. If sin is not absent, then it is present. So, if Q, then R, we should already probably know what this one is. Thus, if you speak too much, sin is present. So, if P, then R. What is that?
Mother's pattern.
Ben?
It's pure hypothetical.
Pure hypothetical. McKeever, remember, a pure hypothetical has 3 hypothetical statements. So you can abbreviate. So, for example, affirming the consequent, I would say ATC. Denying the antecedent, DTA. Pure hypothetical, PH, so on and so forth. So there's only 5 options here. Sketch these arguments out, and then it should be a piece of cake. Okay, Curran?
Explain number 2.
Yeah, so
I thought
are you looking at page 231?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So look at page 231. Look at the box that says denying the antecedent. The form of denying the antecedent is if P, then Q, not P, then not Q. That's the form. Okay? Because think of it this way. Remember, the question is, if these two were true, would the conclusion have to be true? So let me put it to you this way. If it were true that the Bible teaches that if a man is generous, then he will prosper, and if it were true that Mike is not generous, does it have to be true that he cannot prosper? Curran, can you think of one person in the history of the world that has been generous, that has been not generous and has prospered?
No.
I can. There are many people who have not been generous and yet have prospered. Okay, so the question that you ask, the simplest way to do this, guys, is to, again, sketch the argument out, and then this is the only form. Like, this is the form of the denying antecedent. That's exactly what it looks like. And if you are still stuck, ask yourself the question, if these 2 premises were true, would the conclusion have to be true? And if the answer is no, it's definitely invalid. And then your question is, which one is it doing? Is it denying the antecedent or affirming the consequent? Yes?
I just don't get how you did that, the part, how you were able to put it into the...
Well, all you're doing, Curran, is just working with P's and Q's. So, read the first statement.
The Bible teaches that if a man is generous, and he will prosper.
Okay, it says if the Bible, so
if P, then Q.
If P, then Q.
We know that Mike is not generous.
Okay, is generosity the P or the Q?
The Q.
And so therefore, he's not generous, so it's not Q.
That's what I was getting. It originally had P, negative P. So I thought that it would be.
Denying, sorry, it is. It's not P.
So I thought it would be. Oh, it's not P.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
The Bible teaches that if a man is generous, then he will prosper. So the if is if a man is generous. That's my P. Then he will prosper. That's my Q. Okay.
Oh.
Yes.
So. Okay.
Okay, and then the next statement says, Mike is not generous. Remember, Generosity is my P. So Mike is not generous is not P. Therefore, this says he cannot prosper. That's not Q, but that is invalid.
So
Okay.
where the if is, whatever comes next is the subject?
That's the antecedent, not the subject, the antecedent. The
Okay,
antecedent is the statement after the if, the consequent is the statement after the then.
That's what I was confused about, because I thought the first one would be Q, P, or no, PQ, and then I thought the Q